Yeah, so maybe like, can you walk through how you used to plan iterations? Because I know, for example, in that swim lanes MVC, the epic swim lanes MVC issue, I know you broke things down into iterations kind of manually, and now you're doing iteration planning, I guess, outside of GitLab, but then also within iterations. So kind of like walk through maybe what you used to have to do versus how you're working with them now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's tough because it's also changed a bit in that our iteration planning now happens at the group level, as opposed to previously the iteration planning that was just for our front end team, plan front end team that was putting everything in iterations. So what's the best way to do this? Let me start off with showing you our iteration issue. And I will show you the issue from last iteration, because this one, like we just created this, John just created this for product planning.
Okay.
But it mostly, I think it just has like the, I don't know, he did put some stuff in there.
Yeah, this one's going to be different too, because it's product planning now. But yeah, I think the last one is a good idea.
Okay. So let me, this is the last one.
It's 2 weeks now instead of 1 week, right?
It is 2 weeks now instead of 1 week. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so what we do, this is within the plan project, is we'll create 2 of these fortnightly iteration issues, one for product planning and one for project management. Typically, either John or myself, and then Jake or myself create the issue. And we use this as kind of our, it kind of replaces the planning issues that we used to have. So I'll just go through the highlights of this issue real quick. We do a quick recap of the last iteration there, any of the goals we hit, anything that is carryover, anything that we didn't finish in the last iteration. And right now we're saying if something doesn't get to, I think it's still, if something doesn't get to review, we want to get to a place where we only consider it done or completed in that iteration if it actually gets to GitLab.com. But for now, because we're not at that small of a cycle time yet, we're just saying if it's in review, it counts as
done.
Actually, I think it's if it's in maintainer review. If it's in initial review, we'll still carry it over. But if it's in maintainer review or it's close to being merged in, then we'll go ahead and count it as being done.
Cool.
So it's carryover, and then we start going through what is new for the next iteration. And this is primarily just features. So any features that we can commit to in the next iteration, we'll put in here. John goes through and puts all the backend ones that we've committed to. I'll go in and do the front end ones. On the front end side, because what I want to do is get to a point where our feature issues are 2-week or iteration chunks of work. And then I can just say, so say we have like 3 front-end engineers on project management. We can look for just 3 2-week or iteration chunk of work. Then that's what we'll commit to for the iteration. Does that make sense?
Wouldn't that be 3 iterations? Can you repeat?
Yeah. So you remember how we used to be, and we kind of still do, but work off of themes. So I want us in an iteration to have 3 themes which is essentially going to be just 3 different issues. So
I
each
see.
front-end engineer will work on a different issue, and it'll be something that they can complete in an iteration in 2 weeks.
Okay, right. And you kind of know the upcoming iterations might match that theme as well. So you might know that, let's say Flory is working on something and you know that these 2 iterations relating to that theme are upcoming. So you might kind of be able to understand what she's going to be working on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so then once we have this list completed, and I'll normally work with the engineers either in one-on-ones or in our Slack channel on what they're going to take on in the next iteration. But once we've completed this, this table here, I'll just go into the issues and do this one. And then I will update the iteration to whatever the upcoming iteration is. So this one looks like was part of the carryover. So if it had iteration 10, I'll just go in and change it to iteration 11. For now, we do have one more step in there because we don't have iteration metrics in product yet. We're doing a lot of that manually within a spreadsheet. So we've only been doing this for the past couple of iterations, but we have a sheet here, a new sheet for each iteration. And at the beginning of the iteration, we'll come in and add all of the issues that we commit to, and we'll put in some basic information here. And then at the end of an iteration, we can go in and determine, or we mark down if it's either done or it's carrying over to the next iteration. And that way we can use this to create some, and I don't know if I have this up.
I'm Googling sister,
but anyway.
sister. No.
Wow, that is the first one. That was a good show.
It was.
But
oh my gosh, my Google Home picked that up. Oops.
Nice. That must be hard because I feel like I say Google a lot.
No, I didn't even say it.
No.
Always listening to me, I guess.
Yeah. But so we transferred that from the CSV over to SciSense, and then we're able to have to add some basic analytics through SciSense that way.
Okay.
Eventually, you want to get to a point where a lot of those charts are within the product. And we already have, I'll go into the iterations now. We have some basic charts, but there's no filtering or anything. So this includes, like the iterations page here includes issues for the entire group. Actually, I think we're at a point where it is just a project, but you can't filter it by just like the plan stage. So the charts that do show up or that will show up here are not valuable yet because it's like essentially the entire company's metrics. Right.
I think the plan is to be able to at least filter down, right? Like
label.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
So there's a couple issues. Sorry, just real quick. There's a couple issues on improvements we want to make to this page. One is to add the charts, and I think that is actually already merged in. We just need to turn on the feature flag. But again, that'll show the numbers for all of GitLab. There's an issue to filter it, but then there's also an issue for down here to be able to group by specific label. So at least we can see, like right now, I have no way of telling if these are our issues or if they're another stage's issues. So at least if we're able to group it by like the group labels, then that'll even just that'll be a lot more valuable than this is.
Yeah, have those swim lanes basically.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you know.
Which would be nice.
That makes sense. So
Okay.
what is the main, like what analytics are you pulling from Sisense? Like what is the main insight you're looking for there?
So I want to see, and it'd be nice if we had it by, and that's what the burn up and burn down charts will show. But even just a basic burn down chart, so I can come in like halfway through an iteration and see if we're on track to complete everything within that iteration, or how much we have left in that iteration. That'd be super helpful. Also stuff like seeing what our velocity is for an iteration. We don't have that in product yet. We do that for milestones off of weight in Sisense. But it'd be nice to get that information at an iteration level, because I think we want to move a lot of our planning to the 2-week iterations instead of the month-long milestone or release.
And what, I know we talked about this before, but what is the benefit of planning at really like an iteration level versus milestone?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to adjust if we need to. So ideally, every release, you're producing stuff that you can release to customers. With a month-long release, that's building a lot of stuff to get in for that month, and then we show it to a customer. And if we had some incorrect assumptions or we need to change something, it's another month again before we have to change anything. Whereas in 2 weeks, it's a smaller chunk. Like, we're breaking things down into smaller pieces. We get it out to customers a lot sooner, or in half the time. Those are the main benefits. Planning wise, it's a lot easier too, because it's just less work that you're planning for. So those are some of the main benefits, I think, of smaller iterations.
That's a lot of benefits. Do you have an example of where breaking work down into iterations helped us move a little faster, or maybe understand something was like blocked or flag something up more quickly?
Yeah. What's a good specific example? I think the swim lanes work was a good example. But that may have also been, I think having it split up into iterations caused us to break down things and come up with a plan, as opposed to, well, maybe we can get all this stuff done within the month.
Can you pull up the swim lane MVC really quick? Because I know you did a lot of awesome work there. So I just want to. Okay, you do exactly what I do. Just Google everything.
Do I? Yeah. Especially the ones that I know I've been at.
Yeah.
Like I've been on this issue.
Like we've lived on this issue. Yeah.
I should probably just bookmark this this issue. Yeah. So here is the iteration schedule here. I think before we had the schedule laid out, we just said, let's try to get swim lanes done in this milestone. There wasn't really a sequential like map on how to go about getting these done. And there were some cases where, we got to an iteration, we worked on that, and that like objective ended up being more work than we had thought about. And that was okay, because then we were able to say, this is going to take another iteration. Let's just push everything in the upcoming iterations back another iteration, or we could have adjusted something, like pulled something up so that we were working on it in parallel with another objective from a sooner iteration. So there's just a lot more flexibility when we had things chunked into these small iterations.
Mm-hmm. And is it helping sequence the work at all? Like, is it showing the dependencies
Yeah.
more? Or, okay, how is it doing that?
Yeah. Especially for cases like this. Like, ideally, a lot of what we can work on in parallel, but there are some cases where it doesn't, where that doesn't work because there are dependencies. So yeah, this really laid out, or we were able to lay out like the order that we were able to do things, and saying that, you know, this is something that a lot of future things are going to be dependent on. So this is really something that we need to get done in this in an earlier iteration, as opposed to you know, pushing it back to a future iteration.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Are y'all using the like blocking is blocked, like the actual dependencies widget a lot here?
We do. Yes, we do. But I don't. Yeah, no, we do. Whenever, because we were always pretty good at using like the related to box. But once we got the blocked by and the blocked by widget,
Yep.
like we were able, yeah, we started using that more. I don't know if we use it enough, like after the fact, especially on the, like you work on something and you see that it blocks multiple downstream issues. Like, I don't think we do a good enough job of, after the first dependency is cleared out, going to all the other issues and updating them and saying, hey, this is not blocked anymore, we can work on this now. We probably need to figure out a better way of making that visible, or letting people know that, hey, this thing is no longer blocked. But in general, I think we do a pretty good job of using that widget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed some cool things recently where it's like, it actually pops up saying, something saying, are you sure you want to close this issue?
Oh, yeah.
Right, like that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. So how can you see design helping y'all with this and breaking things down into iterations, or even making our design process more visible through iterations?
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas there?
Well, how do you think we can use we can use this? Because ideally, you know, we're working, like the way I envisioned working with design is like the majority of work is going to be within the iteration that we commit to building something. But for most features, for most issues, like there's going to be a decent amount of early on prep work, as far as the designs are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be nice if we had design working like an iteration ahead of development to get at least the initial designs done. But then, yeah, I also don't want, because I've seen this fail in the past where we have a completely separate design team that tries to work ahead of the development, but then they're working on something and then it's kind of just thrown over the fence to developers. And then there's not a whole lot of communication. Like when you have those handoffs, there's not a whole lot of communication that happens when things are actually getting built. And then Sometimes, you know, an engineer can build something and then they'll pass it back over to design to approve it. And maybe that's where the back and forth comes, but sometimes it's really slow because, again, it's more handoffs of approval. So I don't want to see that. I would love to see us collaborate more, like on the same iteration. But again, for a decent amount of the work, like the prep work, the pre-work, I think that should happen like at least an iteration before we plan on actually building it.